All right, June 12th. Good news, Tesla didn't go down again today. It's Sunday, but futures look bad, so we'll see what happens. All right, this is done. Amazon. I spoke about this before, but I'll just go real quick over it. So when I when I started investing, I went into Blizzard, and then eventually I discovered Amazon. I sold all of it. I kept buying Amazon on its way up from $300 all the way up to around 3,000 every time I had enough money. And yeah, I sold it 3,000. But that's a story for later. I didn't sell it when I was 20. I sold it when I was 20, 26. So I bought it all the way up. Anyways, my third job. I worked, I actually lived in the same building as this job, so it was really convenient because I'd live there, I'd go to the gym, which is in the building, and then I'd go to work. I would just stay in the building the whole time. So, uh, that was after the previous job so what I learned at this job was how to run a whole station on my own. Normally it's supposed to be a two-man station because it's garde manger and desserts, but I got it to a point that I could run the whole station myself. And there was a bunch of students from another community college that worked over there, so it was always like this mini rivalry between me because I'm from the better school, and then the like three or four of them. So the chefs made us like do mystery baskets and make specials and stuff. That was the first time I put a special on a menu, and I ended up making basically a fruit mosaic, fruit jello that looked like a mosaic. So I laid down a layer of gelatin, and then I placed fruits, like let's say blackberries, in a pattern, and then I put another layer of gelatin, and I went in and out of the fridge maybe like 10 times until I built up the gelatin layer, and then it looked like really nice because it was like pieces of fruit all in concentric circles and stuff with different layers. But yeah, that was my special. It was fruit jello with strawberry sauce and condensed milk. Yeah. So people were nice there. I learned a lot, but the one thing that I picked up that I didn't want to do over there is an ethical thing. It's labeling your products properly. I remember we did a catering, and then I was filling up the buffet line because it was a buffet for like hundreds of people, and I read the tag on it, and then it said island roast chicken. And then I was like, wait, I cut this chicken earlier today all by myself. I broke down like 30 Costco chickens, and I put them in these hotel pans. So we're selling Costco chicken and labeling it as island roast chicken. Yeah, anyways, I don't want to do that, so yeah. I told this story in one of my other videos, but since this is chronological, I'll tell it again in case somebody didn't watch. I'm pretty sure nobody watched the other one because it has like 10 views. So, when I was on the competition team for the first year, all of us just automatically made the team. There was no filter because usually there's 10 people that apply, then 5 people don't make the cut, and then only 5 people make the team. But this year only 5 people applied and 5 people got it. So no filter. It was just anyway. Yeah. So in general, I think people thought that our team sucked because there was no filter. So even if there was somebody really weak, they wouldn't get filtered out. So I remember we had to do tournées of apples, which is I think it's seven-sided like football shape with flat edges, and we're supposed to practice it to the point that we could tournée, I think 8 pieces or 4 pieces in 10 minutes. I think it was 8 in 10 minutes. And we decided to do apple. And apple is hard because a potato, you can easily cut the center out. But the apple, because it's so small, once you quarter it, there's the inside core and then there's skin on the outside. So your margin of error is very small. And we wanted to do apples. And I remember we all tried to do it, and they either came out, well, all of them came out really, really ugly, and most of us were very, very over time. We had 10 minutes allotted to do it, and that's like the hardest skill that you have to learn in competition, I would say, as far as moving your hands. So I sucked at it, like flat out sucked, just like everyone else. And I don't like the feeling of sucking at something. So I asked the teacher if he could order a case of apples for me, and he said yes. So the next morning I came in 1 hour early, and I just stood there with like 100 apples, 1 or 2 hours early. I just stood there with 100 apples, just cutting it as fast as I can. And part of it was it was on my video of learning. You can cut 100 apples and you don't get any better, just like anything else. Just because you do it doesn't necessarily mean you get better. You should get better, but unless you put the mental effort to try and get better, like think like, oh, that was a bad cut, and acknowledge like, oh, that was a crooked cut. And like, one thing is realizing you made a mistake, and then the second thing is doing something about fixing it. Because if you make the same mistake over and over and you're like, that's what happened, then you won't get any better. You need to realize you made a mistake, and then the second thing is, what am I going to do to make it better? My angle is off, or I didn't put enough pressure with my grip, and that kind of stuff. And it was pretty standard for us to take the piece, cut around it 7 times, and then like look at it, and then go back around one more time to clean it and trim it up. But I thought like that's a waste of time. It's like, why don't you just do it perfectly the first time? So I practice with the intent of getting it perfect the first time, because usually you leave it a little bit bigger, so when you go around again you can trim it down. But then I thought like, just practice enough that you can get it in one go. So I did practice, and I did it with intention. So I cut the case of apples, and then like I went home, I went to sleep, and then the next day I came back, I could do it like pretty proficiently. I can confidently say my apples were nicer than everyone else's, even teachers actually. There were like, some of them that I made were like textbook perfect. Like you could look at it and they look symmetrical with a 7-sided, not an octagon, septagon. Yeah. So it was a 10-minute skill for that, and I think the fastest time I could do it was like 3 or 4 minutes. So because I saved so much time, it leaves room for me to focus more on the other. Like, that's the thing, is if you save more time on everything you have to do, then you have even more time, and if you mess something up, you have time to fix it. So this was a big cushion for me personally, and then if I could finish my section early enough, I could provide that cushion to somebody else. So I would be an asset rather than a detriment, because like if somebody consistently underperformed, I mean somebody else is picking up the slack. So yeah, that was that. How much time we got left? 1 minute. Can't do, this is more competitions. This is specific to this one, but I'll talk about, what does that say? Banquet. Oh, I'll talk about staging. I'll do this banquet one real quick. So a stage is when you work for free, and when I was in Maui, this was when I was like 22 or 23, I went and staged at this big fine dining restaurant chain local to Hawaii, but then they're all over the US now. But I staged there because I knew one of the sous chefs, and I just did whatever they told me. And then for they knew who I was and they knew where I came from, so they knew I was decent. But for some reason, they just left me in the. It's a long, big line with like 10, 15 cooks. But then when I went there, I was like, what the fuck? Half of these people are like two-thirds of them are like the kids, younger than me. There's like high school students in there. It's crazy. There's so many like people who weren't qualified to do the job over there, I would think. But anyways, they sent me like just I was just there to stage and do whatever they told me to do. So they put me in the back during service and was like, hey, we have a like a PDR or a banquet or something like that. Plate. They showed me one plate and then they're like, okay, do it on the rest of them. It was for like 60 people or something. So I plated up 60 salads, and then like people would come from the front and just like give me like sheet pans and stuff like, oh, this is the next thing and this is the next thing. And then by the end of the day, I realized, huh, I just did a whole 60-man banquet. I plated a 60-man banquet on my own. What would have happened if I wasn't there? Anyways, right after the stage, I was just talking to the chef because I was only staging for one day, and he tried to hire me as a sous chef. Yeah. Talent is slim on the other islands, even more so than Oahu.